How you doing? It is 99 days until the election. 99 days. So I've got to ask you before we start, what are you doing today to help make sure that Kamala Harris becomes the next president of the United States? Kamala Harris is building one of the strongest and broadest coalitions in American history. We have leftists supporting her. We have centrists, Democrats, independents, and now Republicans are overwhelmingly supporting Kamala. Not obviously MAGA Republicans, but Republicans who feel like they don't have a home anymore. A group of Republicans called the Lincoln Project just came out with this ad. It is a doozy. It's called Kamala Harris for President. I'm going to show you that in just a second. But first, this is not the first time that Republicans are throwing their weight behind Kamala Harris. A group of Republicans who supported Nikki Haley in the primary are now coming out in support of Kamala Harris. It is called Harris Voters for Kamala. Here's the director talking about why they think this is so important. Real quick before we get into the video, if you could please like this video. It is the best way to make sure it spreads far and wide and this message reaches people who need to hear it. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe.
Role in battleground states like Wisconsin with a matchup between President Biden and former President Trump.
Now that President Biden has left the race and endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris as the Democratic nominee, some of those voters might shift their stances. Political reporter Darielle Fair talked to the voters who have protested their party's candidate to see what they think about the change on the Democratic ticket.
I also spoke with Craig Schneider, the director of Haley Voters for Biden, a coalition of registered Republican voters who did not want Trump to become the Republican nominee.
They made that clear in their primary election vote. The pull, we think, is understanding that the Biden-Harris administration has actually been far more of a centrist administration than it's given credit for.
The coalition is now Haley Voters for Harris, announcing their endorsement of the vice president. Snyder says that Haley supporters make up a significant block of voters that could potentially decide key swing states. And they like that the Biden-Harris administration offers moderate policies on issues like immigration and crime. Snyder also emphasized age being a potential issue with the potential Harris-Trump matchup.
Governor Haley had a lot of insight in that statement because there's a majority of Americans, there has been for months and months reflected in the polls, who want a new generation of leadership. And I think that Vice President Harris represents that.
Earlier this year, Nikki Haley ran against former President Donald Trump for the GOP nomination and said the 2024 election was going to be won by a younger candidate.
Most Americans do not want a rematch between Biden and Trump. The first party to retire its 80-year-old candidate is going to be the party that wins this election.
I believe her on that one. I think Nikki Haley was psychic. She is going to be eating those words because, or maybe not, because she's right. And she's going to be right. The electorate wanted something different. Democrats gave it to them. And let me tell you why this let me tell you why this Harris Voters for Kamala group is so important. And then I'm going to show you this ad from the Lincoln Project, which you're going to love. I think. I loved it. Trump is coming out now every day. He's going to, for the next 99 days, from now until November 5th, he is going to try to frame Kamala Harris as a crazy leftist. And for his voters and the base of his voters, they're going to believe it hook, line, and sinker. But having a group like Harris Voters for Kamala saying to the American people and saying and endorsing the fact that she is a centrist, she is from a centrist administration, and that she is trying to work together to build a coalition that represents all Americans is invaluable. This is a beautiful thing that's happening, and it's going to very much so help her win the election. Mark my words. Here's the Lincoln Project ad.
Joe Biden isn't the man he was 20 years ago. He's older. He carried a heavy burden. Some days it really showed. But he's also wiser, more experienced, which is why he not only had the courage to pass the torch to Kamala, but the character to put America first. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is exactly who he was 20 years ago, a fraud. a criminal, a liar, a fool. A man who never kept a promise in business or to his family. A man without integrity, honor, or courage. Every day with Donald Trump is just more of the same. More lies, evasions, and attacks. He's just as selfish, small, petty, and full of hate and vengeance as he ever was. This election will be many things to many people, but the undeniable truth is that it's between a prosecutor and a criminal, between justice and corruption, between the hard truth and the big lie, between a candidate who wants to leave America a future and a criminal who can only cling to the past. The choice is still clear. It's America or Trump. It's Kamala or MAGA. It's us or them. Kamala Harris for president.
That is good. I love that they are using her messaging in that ad. It's about the future instead of the past, prosecutor instead of corruption. Now, you might be used to the Lincoln Project, and you might just consider them like another like a wing of the Democratic Party. That's not the case. These are hard. I worked there. You might not know that. I was a communications director 4 years ago. And I'm going to tell you, these are hardcore Republicans. One thing we did not do at the Lincoln Project was talk about policy, because they very smartly hired a lot of Democrats to work on the staff, because they didn't feel like they could trust any Republicans who are from the Republican Party. Very smart of them. But we didn't talk about policy because they are hardcore Republicans. They believe in conservative ideals, but they also believe in democracy. And they have been, for the last 4 years, doing everything they can, they believe, to do what is right, which is to try to save democracy in their own way. So yes, the Lincoln Project, we feel like they are just a part of like the liberal movement. That's not the case. They are very much so Republicans fighting against Trump. And they're using Kamala as a tool to help save democracy. And hopefully one day we can get to a situation where we start to debate these issues that we used to be able to debate 10 years ago, 20 years ago, about tax rates and how we want to, lift up the middle class, all that sort of stuff. But right now the house is on fire. And so I'm glad that we have people with water buckets like the Lincoln Project, like Harris Voters for Kamala, that are helping build a coalition that is truly going to save America.
I know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?